Palestine is not merely a humanitarian crisis. It is the intentional dismantling of healthcare system for the purposes of ethnic cleansing of the Palestinian people. Hospitals have been repeatedly bombed. Healthcare professionals have been brutally. Some of the stats indicate, according to the Palestinian Ministry of Health, that over 1,700 health professionals have been killed. 165 doctors, 260 nurses, and hundreds of paramedics. Average daily death of healthcare workers is about 2 people per day. Approximately 300 healthcare workers are currently detained. Some have been killed in detention, like Dr. Adnan Bush and Al-Shifa on the Wilson, that was tortured and raped and killed, whose body is yet to be returned in another gross human rights violation. We have Dr. Sam Al-Samir, a neonatologist from Kamal Anwan Hospital, who was incarcerated since 27 December 2024, almost a year to date, without charge. His health and well-being is of grave concern at present, together with many other healthcare workers under similar conditions. Medical and educational facilities have been destroyed, which has halted the introduction of future healthcare workers. There has also been the mindless destruction of the Gaza fertility clinic and the destruction of thousands of embryos. Healthcare workers are forced to practice medical anesthesia, deciding who receives care and who is left to die, not based on medical need, but on resource deficit imposed from outside. Then they too have become marked targets of the genocide. In the opening statement by Dr. Simon Mohammed, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right of everyone to the highest attainable standard of physical and mental health, at the 80th session of the General Assembly under the Agenda Item 71.3, Promotion and Protection of Human Rights, Dr. Mohammed reminds us of healthcare workers as human rights defenders who need to be protected as such. However, in Gaza, healthcare facilities have been rendered inoperable. Ambulances targeted, already fragile supply chains have been severed. Fuel, electricity, water, sanitation, and medical products have been decimated. This is not wartime strain. This is structural annihilation. And under international humanitarian law, healthcare infrastructure enjoys special protection. Its destruction is not incidental. It constitutes grave breaches and war crimes. Genocide is not limited to mass graves. In Gaza, we are witnessing that genocide is also a mass enabling project. Thousands, particularly children, are surviving bombardment only to live with permanent amputations, spinal injuries, traumatic brain damage, and irreversible psychological trauma. The genocide is a mass disabling crime against humanity with the highest number of amputees in modern history. When rehabilitation services are denied, when prosthetics are unavailable, when mental health support is impossible, disability becomes permanent by design. And the population does not need to be exterminated, destroyed. We deliberately make a generation to erase this future. This is not incidental suffering, it is systemic and systematic harm with long-term intent. And one of the most alarming features of this genocide is the criminalization of healthcare itself. Doctors, nurses, paramedics, rehabilitation professionals, hospital administrators have been arrested, detained, interrogated, imprisoned, killed, while on duty, some without trial, some without access to legal representation. In fact, in most cases, their only crime is that they the weak, vulnerable, and thus useless. When healthcare workers are admitted, the message is unmistakable. Saving lives has become a punishable act. A system that imprisons healthcare professionals is not defending security. It is dismantling survival. The other part of the story to today's announcements has to do with the alarming number of children in prison. And this indicates a total collapse of moral order around the world, where we are okay for these breaches to continue to happen without accountability. The most damning indictment is the imprisonment of children. And we looked at the statistics where, according to the which is the Israeli human rights organization, 350 children are in prison. And according to another human rights organization, Defense for Children International, Palestine has stated the children between 500 to 700 Palestinian children are detained and prosecuted in the Israeli military court system. Minors already traumatized by war, violence, enslavement, and loss are detained under conditions that violate international child protection standards. After all, childhood is the context, in this context, is not treated as a protected stage of life, but rather as a security threat. And a society that imprisons children has really crossed over into moral collapse. There is no legal doctrine, no security argument, and no ethical framework that justifies the routine detention of children. So we get today, and this is not a call for them, let's be clear. This is a call for accountability. International law must be applied consistently or it loses meaning. Healthcare must be protected or humanitarian law becomes fiction. Healthcare workers must be defended or medical neutrality care for all collapses. Children must be protected for the future is deliberately destroyed. History will not remember who issued the most statements. It will remember who acted and who did not, who were complicit, who were the enablers, and who were the perpetrators. This is duty, it is not rhetoric. As a healthcare worker, as a mother of two, who was abducted in international waters in October this year, in my participation in the global return in Gaza, my duty is to speak up about the conditions in the prisons. My fellow Christian members were detained in Pittsburgh prison, myself for 6 days. We bear witness to the conditions in the prison, only a taste and sliver of what it's like for Palestinians in these prisons. And we continue to call and act to break the immoral and illegal siege of Gaza, which is now into the second decade, or 17 years. As a South African, my duty is to recognize injustice when it repeats itself. As a member of healthcare workers for Palestine, South Africa, my duty is to speak out where healthcare is recognized and human rights are violated. Reclaiming justice in the Palestinian narrative is not radical. It is the responsible thing to do. It is evidence-based. It is built on our own healthcare practice, and it is long overdue. Healthcare is not a privilege, it is not conditional, and its disruption is a crime against humanity. And so I also remind our members of Grace here today, please let us not forget that according to the President Government Media Office, 257 journalists, your colleagues, have been killed in this genocide today. 257. So this is where we are. My fellow panelists will defend the Pan-African imperative and what we need to do. Thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to address the issue. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much for the contribution. That's quite astonishing. Looking at egos in the house, the works of the story that I'm sure very of lives, and to my colleagues as well, journalists who kind of just imagine what has been there from the 257 persons as well. That's about the history of any day. That's quite a lot. Thanks to my first time in the we're pretty close to Australia for the wonderful job. Thank you so much. I'd like to also lay down voice to what is happening. I would like to invite someone with what we call South Africans BDS coalition. She worked with South African foreign affairs partners on the history of Palestinian and asked for two councillors at the South African embassy in Algiers. She grew up in Lebanon and was an activist in the anti-apartheid movement and the Palestinian Solidarity campaign in the UK. So now I invite Richard Hagen to please join us as we join us there. The Zoom. Thank you so much, Richard. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Thanks very much. It's an honor to be with you, although from a distance, and greetings to everyone who's there, including our comrade Fatima Hendricks as well. I hope you can hear. Is it fine? Hello?
Yes, we can hear you, Roxanne.
We can hear you.
Great.
Please go ahead.
So I want to start off by saluting the Palestinian people's unyielding spirit of resistance in the face of Israel's cruelty and barbarism, its numerous crimes against humanity, countless war crimes and violations of humanitarian law. And to say that the global BDS movement is calling on people across the world at this moment to intensify our solidarity, to increase the pressure on genocidal Israel, and to escalate the boycotts, divestments, and sanctions calls that we're making. It's the time for all of us in Africa to intensify international pressure on apartheid Israel. We can see millions of people across the globe are not falling for the myth that there is a ceasefire. They're not falling for the myth that the genocide is over. We've seen like massive strikes, general strikes in Italy. We've seen dock workers across Europe refusing to offload and unload weapons and dual-use items going to apartheid Israel. We've seen protests across the world, and right now we are witnessing hunger strikers, 8 young people in the United Kingdom who, because they had taken action, non-violent solidarity action against Elbit, the Israeli weapons manufacturing system in the UK, were arrested, have been denied their normal rights because the organization they have supported has been prescribed as a terrorist organization by the United Kingdom. And they are now on, I think, the 48th day of hunger strikes. The UK government is refusing to grant them bail, even refused yesterday to bring an ambulance to one of them who was demanding an ambulance. And so I think we need to demand our governments, demand from the UK government they immediately allow these people the hospital care they need and allow them to be released on bail. That's just one example of how I think people are not falling for this this fake idea that there's any kind of a ceasefire. It's an ongoing genocide. Just yesterday, Israel bombed a school and a wedding in Gaza, killing even more children. And there have been hundreds killed and wounded from direct bombings, but also from collapsing ruins where people are trying to shelter from the winter storms. I'm sure you've all seen these horrendous scenes of the storms in Gaza, of the flooding, of the tents blowing away, of the devastation. And the humanitarian aid is there. It's not that there isn't humanitarian aid. It's not that there isn't organizations who have the long experience of distributing in a dignified and fair way the medicine, the food, the shelter that is needed. Israel promised in the ceasefire deal that it would be allowing insufficient humanitarian aid. It has not done that. So it's not only bombing and continuing to break the ceasefire directly, it's also refusing to, as it always does, to do what it agrees to in so-called ceasefire or so-called peace deals. And I think it's not that more humanitarian aid is needed, it's that pressure needs to be put on the apartheid Israel state to end this impunity, end the siege on Gaza. And if you look at what's happening in the West Bank, the escalation of attacks by illegal settlers protected by the Israeli occupation forces, as well as the occupation forces themselves. Every day they are arresting Palestinians, detaining them without trial. There are pogroms on setting fire to Palestinian villages, homes, and so on. Meanwhile, the IOF is closing in, putting more and more roadblocks, restricting the movement of people between Palestinian towns and villages, and at the same time increasing settlement building. This year was the largest expansion of illegal occupation in the West Bank since 1967. So it's not just Gaza, and I think we should remember that, because we're talking about Palestine as a whole. We're talking about the Palestinian people as a whole, the system of apartheid that is operated against Palestinians within 48 territories, the reoccupation, in effect, of the areas in the West Bank that are supposedly under Palestinian control, and of course the genocide and ongoing siege of Gaza, as well as in destroying UNRWA and trying to make UNRWA declared illegal, also affecting and implementing the same kind of genocidal ethnic cleansing policies against the Palestinian refugees. So I think that's where we are at the moment. And we know that Trump's plan is nothing more than an attempt at colonial settlement to secure the interests of the United States and the acolytes in the region who are despotic Arab regimes. And it flies totally in the face. That UN Security Council vote was the most shocking thing you could see ever in the United Nations since the partition plan was agreed to, because it flew in the face of international law, the guarantees the Palestinian people have under international law of their right to self-determination and the right of all refugees to return to their homes. So there can be no just peace achieved by profiteering Western war criminals in the total absence of the Palestinian people. And I think that's why we need to keep up the pressure on our governments, on companies, on corporations within our state jurisdictions, because that's the only way we can put enough pressure for countries to start taking measures in the UN, taking the measures of sanctions they have agreed to. Because under the ICJ, the case that South Africa took against Israel at the International Court of Justice under the Genocide Convention, that case, under the provisional measures that have already been ruled on by the court, require both states and companies to prevent and to punish genocide. And that means taking action to ensure you're not complicit, as Fatima Hendricks was saying. If we allow ourselves to remain complicit, and South Africa is, although we took the court case, we are still trading with Israel. We have not stopped sports or cultural activities. We have not taken measures that the state should be taking, and nor have our companies. So we are campaigning, and this is something that I think we need to campaign on together, for an energy embargo. Nigeria is selling oil to Israel. South Africa is selling coal. Now we have just become the #1 seller of coal. coal makes up about 15 to 17% of Israel's electricity needs. Our coal goes straight into the Israeli electricity grid. So it's fueling the military industrial complex, the weapons manufacturing companies like Elbit in Israel. It's fueling directly powering the genocide, the military in the West Bank, and the illegal settlements. And we know they cut off electricity to Gaza in March, literally, as South Africa, fueling the illegal occupation and the genocide. And Nigeria is exporting oil to Israel as we speak as well. So I think we need to look at what we can actually do. And the Palestinian-led boycott, divestment and sanctions movement, a call made by the majority of Palestinians, all of the civil society organizations from village committees to trade unions, all of the major human rights organizations in Palestine made the call on the international community. And it was modeled on the call we made in our struggle against apartheid for the international community to start boycotting, in our case, South Africa now boycotting Israeli goods, divesting, pulling out investments. And I'm going to say there have been some major successes in the last few years. The hugest Norwegian investment company pulled out because of pressure. And it's because of pressure from the people in those countries. No government is going to do it just like that. We need to keep up the pressure in Nigeria, in South Africa, to break those relations. But that also means we need to be educating more and more and more people in our countries. And that's particularly the case in both South Africa and Nigeria, where we know the pernicious role that Christian Zionism, weaponized Christianity, has played, used by Israel to influence people into a false belief around the Jews' rights to be in Israel. And I think we have to keep stressing it's not a religious conflict. It's not about Muslims v. Jews. Palestinians are Christians and Muslims and Jews, in fact, if you look at it. And so I think we need to be, it's something we here in South Africa also are trying to do, to make that point that it's not a religious conflict, to challenge the weaponization of religion by the Zionist entity against people here in South Africa, so they don't fully support and understand the reality, which is that it is a human rights issue. It's an issue of justice. It's an anti-colonial struggle. And we should also remind our governments that they just this year agreed to a resolution in the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, which called for countries to end their impunity, called in effect for sanctions, called for countries in Africa to break those links, because the Charter of the African Charter on Human and People's Rights recognizes Zionism along with colonialism and racism and all forms of discrimination as something that impacts us here. If we allow our governments to continue to trade, some of which by weapons, by spyware, what do they use it against us? We could see that in Kenya when the young people, the Gen Z protesters, they call it, happened a few months ago in Kenya. That paramilitary police that was, well, not even arresting, detaining, disappearing people who were then found murdered, was trained by Israel. If we allow our countries, our governments to continue, we're fighting one struggle as we stand in solidarity with the Palestinian people and call for end to all relations and ties and trade with Israel. We're also doing that for the struggles we are facing within our countries and within our continent. Israel is a major player in the disaster that's happening in the Sudan. They bring genocide everywhere they go, it seems. In the DRC, through the extractivism and people like Dan Gertler and the cobalt and coltan and mining company issues. Glencore, a company we are focusing our campaigning against, selling coal to Israel, also implicit in the war in the DRC. Israel, meanwhile, arming both sides in that conflict. So we have to understand, and we have to increase the awareness amongst people in our countries and in our continent that this literally is our struggle. It's one struggle. The Palestinian struggle is the litmus test. If we allow this to happen there, if we allow our countries to continue to be complicit, we are also then making the situation our future. And we have to stand against that. So, comrades, thank you very much for inviting us. And I hope that we can continue to work on joint campaigns of boycotts, divestments, and sanctions, and that we can continue to stand firm in solidarity with the Palestinian people. Amandla.
Thank you so much for your contribution. And thank you for standing by humanity. Thank you for bringing us to speech to what is happening in the part of the world. It's quite heavy, the kind of information we are getting, but we hope that one day those who are the world leaders will find the last peace to that area of the world. All right, at this point, I would like to also invite the chairman of MPAC to also have his own style of this press conference, also his contribution, and also think about why we are here and what we are expecting the world to do. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. And once again, I'd like to welcome members of the press, representatives of civil society, colleagues in advocacy, healthcare, and humanitarian workers, ladies and gentlemen. This press conference is necessary because truth, when is represented, must be deliberately stated. The Palestinian narrative has not suffered from a lack of evidence. It has suffered from systemic pressure. It has been reframed, reduced, and routinely stripped of its legal and moral context. Occupation has been renamed conflict. Collective punishment has been sacrificed as self-defense. Genocide has been blurred into complicity. But if justice does not become lawful simply because it is prolonged or because it has had purpose, crimes do not disappear because they are repeated. And moral clarity is not suspended because power is evil. To claim justice in the Palestinian narrative, it is to insist on accuracy over convenience, law over propaganda, and humanity over difficulties. Why this conversation matters in Nigeria? Some people may ask. Nigeria must not approach Gaza or the Palestinian issue as a distant tragedy. We must approach it as a recognizable one. Nigeria understands the anatomy of prolonged violence. We understand what happens when insecurity intersects with fragile institutions, mass slavery, and weakened healthcare system. We understand that when violence becomes normalized, suffering does not end. When bombs stop falling, it continues in hospitals that cannot cope, in children that cannot heal, and in communities that cannot recover. In Nigeria, we know that healthcare for love kills quietly. Trauma reproduces itself across generations, and violence from the powerful compounds injustice. This is why Nigeria's voice matters. The country that has experienced the consequences of insecurity cannot be indifferent when other people are systematically stripped of their right to survive. In the light of these three organizations across the African landscape are coming together today to present a list of demands primarily to our government in Nigeria as well as all governments in the African Union. We seek to highlight grave violations of human rights and international law by Israel, including the discovery of medical educational facilities, which has altered the reproduction of future healthcare workers, the targeting of hospitals, clinics, and educational institutions to the war crime that undermines the future of Palestinian healthcare. Similarly, we draw attention to the torture, rape, and killing of Palestinians. Remarkably, that of Dr. Adnan Bosch and Al-Shifa orthopedic surgeon, whose body is yet to return to his family. We condemn the ongoing incarceration of Dr. Azam Abu Sifia and mindless destruction of fertility clinics, resulting in the loss of thousands of embryos. Today, we jointly call on the government of Nigeria and the African Union to intensify diplomatic efforts to support the liberation of Palestine and pressure Israel to end the brutal occupation of Palestinian territories. We express deep concern over the ongoing violence and human rights abuses to Palestinians, particularly in Gaza and West Bank. The international community must come to the aid of Palestinians that have refused to be colonized against the world power that has resolved that the Palestinians that refuse to be colonized, they must be destroyed. We call on the members of the international community, including Nigeria and other African nations, that they must take clear and firm stance against Israel's illegal occupation of Palestinian lands and its disproportionate use of violence against unarmed civilians. We demand the Nigerian government, that the Nigerian government and the African Union upgrade diplomatic engagement with Palestine to support statehood and self-determination. That they support UN resolutions and international law to hold Israel accountable for war crimes. In respect to this, we would like to once again urge the Nigerian government to join South Africa in its case at the ICJ. We also demand for our governments across Africa to impose diplomatic and economic pressure on Israel to lift the blockade on Gaza and speed settlement expansion, to provide humanitarian aid to affected Palestinian communities and support global movements advocating for justice and freedom for Palestine. This, ladies and gentlemen, brings to an end the first conference, and I would like to request the members of the press to address their questions to the members of the panel, including other members that have joined us online. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. Kamarisi. The demands are clear. We'll be able to hear what started from. We know where the stroke is now, and from 1967, the stroke has been on, and know where we are now. And the demands are clear from Muslim Public Affairs Center and also Pan-African Palestine Solidarity Network, alongside some of those organizations who are in support of what's the standing right of today. So we'll allow members of the press to ask questions if you have 1 or 2 questions before we take the vote of thanks. Questions on my own. Okay, all right, please go ahead. Introduce yourself, please.
Okay, so my name is Rashid Abaka. I write for Muslims Nigeria. So we really want to we appreciate your coming to Nigeria for this purpose and for the sake of humanity. We want to welcome you to Nigeria once again. So I believe we speak about the discussion about the Palestinian issue. So particularly in Nigeria, or let's say Africa, mostly informed by the ignorance of the people, especially like in Nigeria, and most of the people's reaction towards the issue of PAPSN. So the question I want to ask is, are we doing enough in sensitizing people about Palestine? Like in Nigeria now, we have the issue of religious where people say, oh, it has to do with the Christianity versus Islam. So what are we doing to sensitize so that this that's number one. Then number two is even because of the education one of the Russian talking about the complicity of the African, particularly Nigeria and also South Africa. Let's try the fact that many South African, just like yourself, you are doing enough in this advocacy. So we also can engage with government, because Nigeria and South Africa to, comply with the international state as far as Palestine is concerned.
Okay, I will allow Russians to take the second question. That's what I have to take the first question. Oh, you pass it on. That's right. Take the first question and I'll come back to Russian response. Okay, so let's take this one. Sorry.
Thank you so much for the welcome and the opportunity to answer, to share perspective. So, as people of conscience around the world, the key part of this has to do with truth telling and the basic knowledge of history, which tells the story of a brutal settler colonialism of the Palestinian land that is very involved in what is occupied Palestine right now. So amongst our young people in particular, the work that we have to do and our seniors is to educate people about the impact of the Balfour Declaration, the history of the Nakba in 1948, and the history and the maps showing people visually what Palestine originally looked like. The peoples of Palestine, the culture of Palestine, the history of Palestine, the coins of Palestine, the artifacts of Palestine that exist in all of its dimensions. And that it has always been a state. So even this idea that other countries around the world are now recognizing the state, Palestine has always existed, it's always been the state. So it's an anomaly, quite bizarre for countries now to be recognizing the so-called Palestinian state. And it just illustrates how far we have come in terms of the world's drifting from what is truth and what is factual. So I think education is an absolute key. And the second part of this has to do with visiting Palestine. So we see the diaspora when trips are organized from Nigeria and from South Africa to go to the Zionist Israeli territory. And we see what happens when these people that have gone come back. They tell a story that is false, that there is no apartheid, that that there are Palestinians living peacefully, happily, equally within the Israeli Zionist Israeli state. And we know that these are far from the truth. So as people of conscience around the world, we have to visit Palestine, we have to occupy Palestine, we have to engage with Palestinians ourselves, and we we have to conscientize ourselves and filter in ways in terms of what is bad for us and what is not. And these are the two main challenges that we have. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Education and visiting, very key. You want to respond?
Yeah, just okay. Yeah. Basically, it's just to expand on some of the points that have been well made by Dr. Fatima, and that has to do specifically I think it's interest to know the potential of the campaign to deploy theological reason for dividing our people, especially in countries like Nigeria, where you have two different communities. And then I think what I would just like to say is if you study the history of Zionism, historically it's trying to justify itself based on the number of needs, political needs, as well as religious needs, and the idea that the Jewish people, they are, exceptional, people. So these are kind of a narrative that have been pushed. But like Shirafi said, I think what is most important, I want to actually liberate people from that section that they are trying to place on the board, is to free our mind by going into the history of that region and struggle. If you look at our own history as Black people, had to deal with slavery for 400 years. Theology was one of the tools that actually was used to justify slavery. I mean, there were religious groups during the time of slave trade that deployed theological arguments to justify the slavery was right. So, it's quite strange. I think the most powerful argument that we can put together against that narrative is to basically cite the example of Jewish people who are living in Israel that are opposed to violence and they are standing shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinians to seek the project of colonization by the Zionists. So the issue is not about the Jewish people, and the Zionists as well as the horrible people who live in Israel at the moment do not speak or represent the entire Jewish nation as people. That's aside, we also have to look at the Palestinian side. There are countless numbers of Palestinian Christians who understand their faith, who understand the doctrine of Christianity, they are beaten to death every day to defend their right to that one as possible. So I think it's actually pretty easy for rational, clear-headed people to look at this and stand for themselves the discussion, the argument that this has to do the people rights, ownership rights that Israel, modern Israel, that was brought into existence by Balfour Declaration of International Union. The entity has nothing to do with the promise of God to the Jewish people. It has the things that the Jewish people that are on the side, the Palestinians are erring in their advocacy. This is purely a project of colonization. And as Africans, I think it's something that we should be familiar with. It should resonate because when we came to colonize Africa, when we transport, they divided us into other groups. It's they're deploying the agreement in order to fight people on the African continent, to tell people that Christians, the religion support Israel, they are Muslim, and they have ancient enmity against people. All these are not based facts. They are linked. And you can see the global movement supporting the emancipation, freedom, and independence of Palestine drops its membership from every nation. This is a human issue. What we are doing here is a human issue. It's not a religious issue. We have different actors within that movement. MPAC is one very different organization, but they are Christian based organization and how to involve in different sides. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Richard, are you still there? Would you like to respond to your side of the question? Hopefully the government of Nigeria is about to enforce those demands that we are making. Or one more can do. Are you still there, Richard?
Yes, it's a bit hard to hear. Sorry, I don't know if you could repeat the question.
The question is, the journalist asked that you said the Nigerian and South African governments are not doing enough. What are you looking forward to them to do more to ensure that we achieve the freedom in Palestine? Did you get that?
Yes, thank you. Yes, I think they need to be paying attention to what they commit to. So what they commit to in the United Nations General Assembly, what they committed to just now in the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, what South Africa is committed to in the Hague group of countries that it's co-chairing with Colombia, is exactly that they must be taking action. They must be sanctioning Israel. So where we are selling oil and coal, we should stop that trade. Where we are playing sports, where we are having cultural relations, diplomatic relations, we should be cutting those ties. Where we have universities with academic relations, those ties should be cut as well. These are international legal obligations. If you look at what Francesca Albanese, the UN Special Rapporteur on the occupied Palestinian territories, says, she says governments need to abide by these international legal obligations so that they are not complicit. Companies need to do due diligence. They can't just say, we don't know where our products go, this is not our business. They have a legal obligation to investigate, to find out, to ensure that they are not participating. Our ports are used by these ships. There was a ship just recently called Holger G that was rumored to be carrying weapons or military equipment to Israel. The ship went into Mozambique territorial waters. The Mozambican comrades, when we were all alerted to this, then they put pressure on their government and their port authority not to allow ships that are carrying this equipment to Israel to dock in our ports and to investigate the cargo so we can be sure what is on there and either ban it or allow it. Now the ship has gone all the way around South Africa. We also made statements on this ship. It's gone into the Mediterranean waters, and Portuguese comrades, the ship is flagged by Portugal, are taking legal action against it. So I think when we work all together, and particularly in our continent, we can really have an impact and put that pressure on our governments to do what they commit to doing and what they are obliged to do by international law. So definitely, I think we have to keep pressure up on our governments to make sure that when they say in the African Commission resolution that the Commission calls on all state parties to the Charter to act on their responsibility under Article 23 of the Charter to assist all peoples deprived of their rights and including the people of Palestine in their liberation struggle, and refrain from recognizing, supporting, or engaging in any act that undermines the right to self-determination. And the statement, the resolution even recognizes the complicity of states in the continent, contradicts the object and purpose of the Charter, the Constitutive Act of the African Union, and the historical commitment of African people to eradicate colonialism and apartheid. And in fact, in the preamble to the Charter, it says, and Zionism in all its forms.
Thank you so much, Richard.
Good afternoon. My name is TBC. Now, my question is, we talked about engaging the African Union. Also, the international. Now, over the last 78 years, I say, of the early occupation of Palestine, the international community has shown itself to be a dishonest government. So, if you want things to get better, how do you engage in this one? It's something that bothers me all the time when we talk about ceasefire and all of that. There has been a ceasefire in quotes for the last few months, but people are still being bombed with the drones that are attacking people. In the last time, over 200 people have been killed at all. So, how do you engage? How do you ensure that from the African Union, Nigeria, some of these lesser nations, sorry, it's the reality of the situation. America, France, Britain, and all of them have protected Israel diplomatically, politically, and militarily over the last 2 years of the current conflict, of the current genocide. So, how do you ensure that pressure from the African Union and the lesser nations work to make this a reality? Thank you.
Any other question? Okay,
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, I think I go with you there. What you say that let's hide for that with this let me say this to you as well as other people that are out here. The paramount of hope of this time. I mean, like I said in my earlier response, it took 100 years of slavery behind. The people fought against the scourge of humanity towards another man. Along the line, during that long period of 400 years, people of the time, probably not the free people today, African still in dragged and shamed, screaming and kicking to foreigners. You cannot keep up and allow those people that describe their actions. I mean, it is very sad to be witnessing what we are living. This is a period of time we are living in, and it's very sad that we are allowed to be witnessing some of the other things that are going on. During this period of 2.5 years of this genocide, America stopped, literally held the hands of the entire world 7 times. That is actually beat the resolution. Through the resolution, almost with unanimity, spoke in one voice for cessation of violence and attacks by Israel against them. US unilaterally, opposed that. Living in the global world, that is the reality of the monster that is the threat to the global peace and stability. What the US represents to the world now. We are all witnesses. It's not only respect to what's going on in Gaza, which is very sad. We are also witnessing what went on in regards to how Israel, in the middle of the night, sneaked onto the Iranian territory to bomb it. Without any justification. On spurious intelligence that is entirely against the intelligence even of the US as well as other global organizations in charge of the intelligence gathering. It relies on its own intelligence that's manufactured when to bomb another country. And the US came behind it to support it. We are also witnessing that with regards to what's going on in Venezuela. So this is the danger that that the United States poses to the peace and stability of the world now. That is said, Martin Luther King Jr., when the US was involved in Vietnam, pretty much the same thing that we're seeing in Gaza now, said that we could not address the problem at home because US was the biggest conveyor of violence in the world. That was 1967. The threats that US posed to the security and peace of the world back then has only escalated since then. Very cannot be so. We continue to mobilize, we continue to speak, we continue to organize, we continue to state what you guys, would like the world to become compliant, organized community of other nations. Look at all the global, instruments that were put in place after World War II, when UN was set up and succeeded the League of Nations. Almost every one of them, almost every one of those instruments have been torn into pieces by the United States of America simply because of the influence that the Zionists have and lobby has on the United States. It's not only Gaza. It's not only Gaza that is under occupation, as you can see. It's only the territory of Gaza that is under Israeli occupation. The entire mind of the US is under Israeli occupation, and you can see the effect of that in the world. But we are not going to be dissuaded by that. We are not going to be discouraged by that. We are going to continue to galvanize opposition to the project, and then ultimately, good will prevail over evil. We have complete assurance of that. Colonization lasted for 200 years, but it ended. Slavery before then was for 400 years, it ended. Apartheid in South Africa was for 50 years, it ended. I have no doubt in my mind that Israeli occupation of Palestine, Congo, Palestine, the rising. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you for rising. The final question.
I have two questions. First one, how would you describe the current phase of the Palestinian struggle and what differentiates it from the previous movement in history?
The second question.
And second question, how many ceasefire calls on international?
Sorry, we can't get the first one.
Many ceasefire calls dominate international discourse. Yes. Why do you believe this narrative of will bring last?
Oh, okay. The ceasefire.
Ceasefire.
Look. Well, again, we will have to believe what we can see. Ceasefire, as far as America and Israel are concerned, it's not ceasefire as a single word. There is two separate words, and fire. That is what it means. It's just like a pause for Israel to be able to reload and to rehab every single day, and you can fast check this and go and check this out every single day of the so-called ceasefire in Lebanon. It's not only Gaza that Israel is attacking, it's attacking literally all the countries that borders it. Imagine Nigeria, we are bordered by so many countries. We are attacking Nigeria, we are attacking the Republic, we are attacking these other countries that are around us. That's what's going on. So even the ceasefire in Lebanon, Israel has broken it so many times. It has no regard whatsoever. We are dealing with the entire states here. A country that has no regard whatsoever for the national by its own identity as well as track record. It shows that it has complete disregard for world order, international law or respect for human life. So that's the pattern of behavior. You have global powers, majorly the United States as well as others within the EU that are fueling this by supplying the arms, by providing the intelligence. I mean, the United Kingdom, that part was displayed, the grand standing and what we see in front of camera provided 70% of the recognized flights for the genocide in Gaza. The intelligence of where to target the bomb. United Kingdom provided most of that support. America sending the political cover and all that. So basically, if you look at all these countries that are supporting Israel in its colonization efforts, these are the countries that have in their own history, involvement in things like slavery, colonization, and imperialism. So basically getting back in touch with their roots for some of them. Look at Germany, for instance. What the church claims that it is doing is basically escaping persecution in Europe, principally Germany, due to the massive violence against Jews and other people, not just only Jews and other people. This became the rallying call for Zionists to say we need a specific homeland for the Jews. So basically, Palestinians have to pay the price for the persecution of the Jews in Germany. This is illogical. Why would the United Kingdom give a land that doesn't belong to it to a people that has no concession to its target or the native population of that land? That's what they're doing. So to answer your question, it's not about ceasefire. Ceasefire will just fail on its own. Ceasefire failed because they are engineered, for failure. It's about the behavior of the actors during this period, and it was imposed by the United States, but it's not being enforced by the United States, which is, part and parcel of the anyway.
Thank you so much. I need to emphasize this. A refugee ceasefire. That's one thing we talk about today's press conference. All right, we spent 1.5 minutes, and like I said, we just want to spend 1 hour. So what I'll allow our director of corporate information of MPAC to go to the form of the world of thanks. Thank you for this.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for honoring our invitation. Although it came to this is a forum for humanity. It's not for any religion, because racism, not electricity. We want international leaders to please come together and have just one voice to stop this genocide. We thank you for coming. We thank you for honoring our invitation, and we thank you. Pray that you use the news issues. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
The press conference so concludes. We will tonight. Thank you so much. Hello. Okay. Russian, okay. Russian is still there.
And those on online, especially those that we thank you for coming online, and we thank you because of what passed on. We also thank the members of MPAC and online and everyone who is online. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everyone. My name is Ruben Palestine. I am Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Roshan.
Thank you, Roshan.